And welcome into the OCR Lounge, brought to you by Brown Bottling. A fantastic episode for you today. Melissa Jones Haab is going to join us in the lounge and going to look back at the 1986 graduate, all of her sports accolades from basketball. She ran track, she ran cross country, even played basketball at Mississippi State. So all you Mississippi State fans, you're going to enjoy this one. But is Melissa Jones Haab joining us in the lounge, who's also being inducted into the MRA Athletic Hall of Fame tonight. So such a treat to have her on campus before she gets inducted tonight. She's going to sit down with us. So enjoy this episode brought to you by Brown Bottling.
I needed that. But aren't you thirsty too?
Yeah.
Hey, what about your friends?
Your car isn't the only one that's thirsty. Grab a Pepsi, Dew, or Starry for the road.
And welcome in.
Thank you.
This
I'm glad to be back on campus. It's so different from when I was here, for sure.
1986.
1986.
Tell me,
Yes.
let's go right into the phone call, if you will.
Okay.
You're being inducted to the Athletic Hall of Fame tonight. It's one of those cool things that people get the phone call. You don't think about when you're in the moment of playing high school sports, or even when you play basketball at Mississippi State. Like those aren't the triggers that you're like, oh, I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame. You just play and be in the moment,
That's right. Yeah.
So let's go. Who you got the call from,
Okay.
and what was your reaction?
Well, Coach DeWeese called me, and he was actually my coach when I played here. So honestly, I thought when he called, he left a message. And I work for a university. I work for the University of West Alabama. And I honestly thought he must have a player that he was calling me to try to get me in touch with, our coach, that he might want to. I had never crossed my mind that it would be this. So I was really blown away. And I think I told him that. I actually asked him if it was a joke. But because I never thought of myself as being a Hall of Fame athlete. I loved the sport, loved the school, loved everything about my experience here. But I played with some greats, and so it is truly an honor, and I'm humbled to be inducted.
Were there any tears?
I'm sorry?
Were there some tears?
Well, no. I think it was just shock.
Oh.
Disbelief. Yeah, actually.
That's really cool.
But excitement once I could let it sink in.
So let's go into just your class of 1986. Basketball was a big thing. You were inducted or called by Coach Sweet. What was it like playing for him?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm actually going to say some of this tonight in my speech because I've really been trying to think about reflecting back on that time.
Because he's iconic. When you start thinking about him, he is iconic.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody knows his notoriety and all of his success. But one of the things that I wanted to say tonight was he was way ahead of his time before Title IX. He did not discriminate on how he treated girls or boys. We were all treated the same because he did coach both. And we were small in numbers, we were small in size, and what he instilled in all of us, I think, was discipline, hard work, and a love for the game. So I'm forever grateful because it has influenced my entire life.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So a lot of times coaches have an impact. They have a lasting impact, positively or negatively.
Right.
Obviously, he had a positive impact on you.
Absolutely.
What were some of the things that he did that motivated you to be the best you can? Because, a lot of times it's that button that coaches have to push, and they have to find that athlete's button.
Right.
What was it that made Melissa go?
I don't know that there was much psychology with it back then.
Right.
I think we wanted to win, and he wanted to win, and we were scared of him, to be honest with you. It wasn't like there was this father-daughter relationship there at all. It was more about he wanted us to be the best versions of ourselves. And I think I wanted to be the best version of myself. So it didn't take much for him to push my buttons.
Right.
I mean, there were a lot of days that I thought he hated me or I hated the sport, or because it was grueling. I mean, it wasn't a thing where we came in and he was throwing us softballs at, y'all can be good, giving us motivational speeches about, something that we could become. We were fundamentally sound, we were in shape, we knew the game, and we played hard for him, and he knew how to coach. So he knew how to take us out when we needed to be taken out, how to, let us have that breather or calm us down when we needed to. And I I know he was cutting his teeth probably on some of that because it was so long ago.
Right.
But obviously he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, yeah. So basketball for you was you did track, you did cross country. Basketball was your love.
It was my love.
Yeah.
Still love watching it. I love where the notoriety that's had now. I mean, what Caitlin Clark has done for the game.
Yeah.
It's been fun. Being a Mississippi State fan, Mississippi State when I was there they were not successful, but they had some success, and I've been able to be a part of watching that and following that. And so I feel like, though, playing team sports is something that everyone should have the opportunity to do, because I think you learn life skills playing sports. And being a part of a successful program, I think, makes it a lot more interesting and a lot more fun. But also what you learn from it is probably hard work pays off and you win. Those are nice life lessons to learn.
So about your love for basketball, where did that, at an early age, when did that come to be?
It was not at an early age. I actually, in part of my reflection, we didn't start out at the young ages like you do now.
Right.
I played church ball, I think, in 5th and 6th grade, and that's when I was first introduced to it, but there was no real fundamental with that. It was just dribbling down the court, if you even knew how to dribble. Right. So it was 7th grade before I really got introduced to it here. It was a Coach Smith, I think was his name, or Schmidt, I don't even remember, I'd have to look back. And then Coach Glenn Boyce was my coach in junior high. So he coached us. He had moved here from New York, and we played for him, and of course we all just thought it was cool that somebody from New York was in Madison. Yeah. And then started playing for Coach DeWeese in high school.
That is incredible. So what position?
Point guard.
Position and number?
Well, 24.
Okay.
Still my favorite number, my lucky number, but played point guard.
Played point guard.
And my philosophy, I'm 5'2". My philosophy was always the ball has got to hit the floor at some point, and I'm closest to the floor. I was not going to beat you on anything with height, but I could get to the ball when it hit the floor.
Well, 24 is a big number. I mean, Kobe.
Yes, of
Kobe,
course.
24?
Yeah.
A lot of people think 8.
He chose that after me.
Yeah, he chose it.
Sure.
When people start thinking about basketball with this school, it is a basketball school.
Correct.
When you start looking at the success that Coach DeWeese had. We had just had a conversation with Melanie Hankins Booth, who had the 81 team made it to the championship but lost. And that kind of set up the trajectory of what is right before Coach DeWeese got here, set up the trajectory of what girls basketball. How successful were y'all in your high school career?
We were pretty successful. We never won overall state. My sisters who played behind me actually were the first ones to do that. But we did win state my junior year, and we were runners-up in, this was AAA. We were AAA at the time, and we were runners-up with South AAA my senior year. We went, I don't know if they still do this, but they had an overall state. So you took single, double, and AAA, and you played each other. And my senior year, we lost first round of league. And they obviously they're a powerhouse in girls basketball and always have been. But they were kind of our nemesis, and we were not able to beat them when I played. But it was always good basketball. You knew that whoever we played, Jackson Prep, Jackson Academy, there were lots of area schools, but then all across the state that, we competed. I remember Park Lane was really good during that time. We were always competitive, but we were successful. And I can remember being friends with people in college who played at some academies that did not have successful programs. And I remember thinking, how do you play and not win? That would be really hard to continue. And how do you love a game if you don't have the success? So I feel like I was blessed with both of that.
That's a lot of truth to that, because 3 words I say a lot is surrender the outcome. But it's also, when you surrender the outcome, you want to put in the work, and you want to see the fruits of the labor that goes in, and you want to see it pay off, like you said. It's just, you want to win. What was that driving factor for you? I'm going to go back. You're 5'2", point guard, in a game that's typically played by people that are 5'7" to 5'8". You see our girls basketball team when they play tonight, I promise I think all of them are over 6 feet.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
What was that driving factor for you of like, you know what, I'm going to be good?
I think it was what Coach DeWeese instilled, that like, we're going to work hard in the off season. What we do in the off season matters, and he taught us the fundamentals. So I felt like I understood the game, and I knew that from an understanding standpoint that a lot of, academy ball at that time, and maybe it's the same way, it was a very disciplined game. it wasn't where you just went out and played what I call street ball. You know,
Right.
we went out and we were playing fundamentally man-to-man defense, so you had to know.
He was still
help
doing man-to-man
side.
back
Yeah,
then.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it was something that he made us believe that if we worked harder than everybody else, we could win.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was motivational to say, I have control over this. So it isn't something that I just have to be 100% gifted,
Yeah.
but I can put in the work and I can be successful as part of a team that was bigger than me.
So you mentioned that you used to walk to school.
Yes. 2 blocks, right that way.
Tell us about, and your sisters walked with you,
Yes.
y'all.
Yeah.
Tell me about those. Let's go behind the scenes a little bit.
Okay.
Just those conversations. Were there ever days of like, do y'all really want to go to school today? Can we just walk back home?
No, that was
No.
never an option.
Yeah.
But we were little stair steps. So within 5 years, they had 4 girls, and we all played. I mean, it was something that I really credit my father for instilling in us that we might be girls, but that doesn't mean that we are less than anybody else.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe back in the day, you didn't skip school. You
Right.
know, I mean, it was never an option. Now we might have fought on the way. People probably could have watched us, and we might have been bickering on the way, walking, and we might have separated ourselves. But Madison was very different then too. It was
Right.
much smaller.
Was there
And
Strawberry Patch?
Strawberry Patch? It was here, but it wasn't developed like it is now.
Okay.
You had Traceland North, Sandalwood. We ran the neighborhoods. That was part of our regimen. Coach DeWeese, he had a mile
Wow.
path set up that we'd have to run before practice.
Wow.
So it was the traffic flow. Everything was very, very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Strawberry Fields, I think we're over there a little bit
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
That's fun. I think that's one of the things that you hear people say, I used to walk to school. Like a buddy of mine in Nebraska walks to school. And he's like, man, I love walking to school. Like
Yeah.
kind of clear. And you get to walk with your sisters
Yeah.
to school. That was that's a really cool deal.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to your other 2 sports, and we'll come back to basketball. Track, cross country. Did you love them, or did you just do them?
I will tell you, cross country, I was not gifted in running, but I love, Coach DeWeese made me do it to make sure we were in shape for basketball. It was
Right.
because he was over those programs.
Right.
What I loved about track and what I love about academy ball, and I don't know if it's still this way, but I got to know everybody from all the other schools. And back then, track meets were on Saturdays, and so it was you gave a pro Saturday. You had to came out here early in the morning when they started the field events, and then you were here all day. And I ran the first leg of the 3 relays, and then he had me run 3 other events. I ran both sets of hurdles, and then he would just, depending on where we needed points,
Right.
he'd either throw me in an event that I think, looking back, that there weren't many runners and maybe we'd get some points, or maybe he thought whoever was running those that day, we could get some points. But we had success. And I'm not saying I was terrible by being
Right.
part of it, but I wasn't 4th leg of the relay like Lori Dennis was,
Right.
you know, who just, you handed it to her and just watched
right.
the gazelle run.
That's right.
But he knew, I think, even then, how to put us in a position to know what our role was, what our skills were. And we played hard for him. We ran hard for him. So, what I loved the most about it was the social aspect, really.
Yeah, that is still true today. That is still true. A lot of get to interact, and it's different from basketball and football or even soccer, where you're playing against it. When you go to a track meet, you'll hang out a little bit. Oh, I have to go race, and you come back and you get to hang out.
Yeah, I loved that.
For those that are watching and listening, you described you did 6 events.
Yes.
That's the most you can do in an event in a day. So you were maxed out every track meet that you went to. That's really cool. Let's go back to this basketball deal, and I probably think this is where this is going to come from. Your greatest sports memory here. Does that come from a basketball, or does it come from maybe a track meet?
Golly, I would have to put some thought in that. I think every game was a great memory for me. I mean, I can't even single out anything singularly, because everything we did, we were always performing at a high level. And even when we won or lost, there's a picture in the yearbook. I actually had to pull out the yearbooks to look at some things, and there's a picture where it says that we're South AAA champs, but it has to be a typo, and I had to go back and look, but we were runners-ups, and we were devastated, you know. But even in those situations, we knew we were coming back and we were going to start building You know, it's not like we rested too long in any
Right.
of the successes or failures. And so I think when I look back on it, what I remember is just being part of a team and loving who we played with and playing hard for a man who demanded excellence. And I think that's a great life lesson.
It is. I think you bring up a great point with that, even for today's athletes. Pushing yourself for your coach. Go into that extra. You know, it's like the old thing when the Navy SEALs, they say raise your hand as high as you can. And they all raise their hand. And then the guy goes, raise it higher. And every Marine or Navy SEAL raise it higher. Like, why didn't you do that the first time? Same thing is what are you going to get out of, you know, is what you put into it.
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing that, you know, even Coach Deweese and y'all, I mean, coaching girls, and you start thinking about that, a lot of times people are like, you want to coach girls differently. Exactly the same. Let's talk about Mississippi State.
Okay.
After your senior year.
Yeah. I had no intentions of playing college ball, but I loved the sport so much that it didn't feel like I was ready to give it up. And so I went and walked on, and Coach Deweese, I'm sure, facilitated that. I don't even remember the details, but the program was not, this was before Title IX. There was there wasn't a whole lot of attention to it. And the coach was a female, and I'd never played for a female before, but she had said, you'll make the team if you can make it through my conditioning, but you will not make it through my conditioning. And I laughed, because I'm like, you have no idea what I've come from. So I knew I would make the team.
Yeah.
But I can remember she was one that played a lot of head games, and it was not a positive experience at all. I do think that I would not have necessarily been a starter, but I would have been a good contributor, because I was one of those that I was high energy and enthusiastic. But I remember my dad coming to watch practice. One of the practices right before season was going to start, and I thought I had been doing pretty good, man. But she deliberately tried to play some head games where she was intentionally not involving me in things, and I remember just squalling, growing, you know, with my dad afterwards, and saying, I hate basketball. You know, and this is a sport that I have loved so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I can't quit, because we were never allowed to quit anything. If we started something, we had to finish at least that season. That was the way my dad raised us. And my dad gave me permission to say, you know, this is different, you know. And so maybe if I look back on it, I would say I should have stuck it out. I should have not let her get the best of me, but I didn't want the ending of what something with basketball would end with would be negative, because it had been such a positive thing for me up to that point.
Wow. And you know, for me, hearing that story, you're almost like, why play the games?
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of those things that you have somebody that loves a sport so much. Let them excel at it. Like, go pour into that person, like Coach Dewey said for y'all. On the flip side of that, what was your greatest challenge?
In
or not even your
sports?
greatest challenge, just a challenge here at MRA while you were a student.
Well, I wasn't academically talented. You know, I was an average academic student. I was probably just average at everything, but I think my biggest challenge was just trying to find my place, just like every high school student. You know, I think basketball sports gave me an identity to where I felt like I fit in. And, you know, we had some dynamics going on in our family where, you know, everything wasn't perfect there. You know, my parents went through a divorce, my dad remarried, those types of things. And I think this gave me a place of comfort and a home. I mean, it really, so I think for me, it was just finding that identity and knowing, like, okay, I can be a part of something and feel good about myself in sports, which I think is a great thing for really any high school student. You know, you want them to find their people, and I think that's where I found my people.
Yeah. What about the difference? You start looking at MRA and the students, then now the basketball program now, and you're going to see Deweese Hall in a little bit.
Yeah.
What was it like playing in front of the home crowd when they were here?
People always followed the sport.
Yeah.
You know, we had, and I'm going to mention this in my comments tonight. I mean, we didn't just feel supported by our own parents and students, classmates that showed up for games. When you're successful, people come.
That's right.
You know, and so people came. But also, I had developed relationships with my opponents and their parents. So we all played each other for so long that I'd go in the stands after games and I'd be talking to my opponent's parents.
Yeah.
So even there, and I've been back to DeWeese Hall since for friends that have gotten inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it is very different. But it's the same in the sense that you have the excitement and the enthusiasm in a winning program, and just seeing the success that's come after us. It really doesn't feel that different when you walk in there. It's like I remember where my dad used to sit and record every game, with his big old camera. I can remember where people were sitting at games, just being back in the gym. So
it's Friday night in DeWeese Hall. We're going to play Jackson Prep.
Oh, wow.
What was the team that you're like, I'm so ready to play this team?
Prep was always a big one for us.
Yeah.
And Coach Dennis Sims was the coach during that time.
Uh-huh.
And we wanted to play hard against him too. He put out great teams as well.
Yeah.
I would say that was probably in Jackson Academy. Coach Sojourner, I saw she's just recently
Yeah.
announced her retirement.
That's right.
She was an icon as well. Always put out great teams. So I think every game for us was pretty competitive. You could come out on any given night and it would be, you could lose or win depending on if you had your mind right.
Yeah.
And so I think every game was a challenge for us.
Who was the team that you were like, I don't want to see them? Like, I don't want to play.
Leak Academy.
Leak.
Leak. It's always Leak. They had our number. I mean, we could not overcome that.
Yeah.
During my time. So,
Wow.
and they had some great talent. I always have, long time we talked about Coach Wolverton there too.
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
That's as you kind of encapsulate tonight. So you're thinking, and you said you're very average. Definitely not very average to be inducted in this Hall of Fame that's now 10 years old. It's only 10 years old. When I look back at it, in 2015 we started this, and the people that are in this Hall of Fame are very extraordinary. They did things above and beyond in their athletic realm. And one thing that's sticking out to me right now is just you being a teammate. And it's kind of this consensus of all three of you is great teammates that push your competitors that are your peers, but also you had a tenacity about you. As you look back at your high school career, what would you think somebody would say? Melissa was blank.
Well, it's funny you say that because I did post the invitation on social media, and so people did make comments, and so I can speak to what people said. I mean, I had people that played against me that talked about memories of playing against me. And people, I was quick back in the day, and I was annoying when it came to trying to steal the ball from people.
Yeah.
So I think they would say that I was quick, I was feisty, I was not going to let
Fierce,
up.
maybe?
Fierce, maybe.
Fierce?
Yeah. But I also, I think, would like to think that I was encouraging, I was positive. Maybe I was a role model to some people that were younger than me.
Yeah.
I knew my role, and I was okay with my role, and if that meant I needed to score some, then hopefully I could step up when that needed to happen. But then if I didn't, it was my responsibility to get the ball to the person who needed to score. And
I think right there, I'm going to pause right there for you. Knowing your role, I think is a big thing in today's sports world. And hearing that from you of playing in 85, 84, 86, all that, knowing that, hey, I know it's expected of me, probably came from your coach telling you that. I think a lot of athletes can take that today and say, I need to just know what my role, I need to know what is expected of me, and then do that and maybe a little more.
Yeah. And I wonder if I really knew that during that time, or if it's just come from years of experience and reflecting back on it, that he was instilling that in me and I didn't even realize it. Because, I've put a lot of thought into what I want to say tonight, but I do think a lot of the life skills that I took with me came from basketball, and I will mention some of those tonight, but I think that I have to credit the success that I've had, even in my career and my family life, things like that, goes back to being a successful athlete here.
Yeah. One of the questions I like asking, especially alumni, is if you could go back and tell your 17-year-old self, what would you go tell Melissa? what you know now, what would you go tell her in 84, 85, 86?
Probably what we've just talked about, that like everything that you're learning now is going to serve you well in life, and don't take it for granted. You know, try to savor every moment, because I do feel like a lot of it was a blur, and like right now I didn't keep good notes on what what we won and what awards I won or anything like that, but I think with some of it was make the most of every opportunity while I was in the moment, because it is fleeting. And then, you get away from it. And if you move away like I did, and you're not in it all the time, but having the opportunity to reflect back on it now and saying, there was a lot more that was instilled in me than I even realized at the time. So if I could go back and do it over again, maybe I would appreciate that a little bit more.
So let's fast forward to today's world.
Okay.
You're now living in Louisville.
I am.
And you work at the University of West Alabama.
I do.
So tell us about that.
Okay. Well, my title at West Alabama is the Vice President of Student Affairs and Enrollment Management. So when I went to state and I stopped playing basketball, I got really involved in student leadership. And one of the things I was involved in was being a student ambassador. They call them road runners at Mississippi State, and an orientation leader, and student government. I was involved in a lot of things. I was involved in a lot of things in high school too, but I was able to do that at Mississippi State. And so when I graduated, I had a chance to start out as a recruiter for the university. And I just kept staying in higher ed. And so I got my master's, and I know I said I'm not very smart, and this, you don't have to be smart to get a master's or to get a PhD, but I did go on and get a PhD. And I've been able to stay working with college students, which I absolutely love. So I feel like those life lessons that I learned, I actually went through a time in my life where I thought I wanted to be a youth director, because I wanted to pour into young people. And so I'm getting to do that in my role. I'm working with college students, and it's a real formative time. So I feel like, and my children will tell you, I'm always giving them words of wisdom, things that I learned along the way. But what I hope is in my current role that I'm getting to pass the torch and maybe teach what I learned growing up.
Y'all just had a huge hire.
Did.
For your
Coach
football
Cochran,
program.
yes. We're very excited.
How is that on campus, the buzz? I mean, it just came out. You hear the news on campus, reaction from you.
Well, it is very exciting. And I've worked in the state of Alabama for a long time, and so if you're an Alabama fan, if anybody's watching, you're an Alabama fan, I know you're excited about this hire. So everybody that I'm working with, especially those that are Alabama fans and know the history of his journey, and even, he went to Georgia, but and even some of his personal challenges, I think.
He's a Saban root.
Yes. And
100%.
I heard, they had the press conference today, and I heard there's a lot of questions about Nick Saban. So I think that affiliation with him brings a lot of excitement and a lot of notoriety and credibility to him that I think hopefully our institution will benefit from. And I believe he'll be successful, and that will be good for, it's a D2 school, it'll be great to be hopefully a feeding ground for athletes that want to come there that may not get the nod at the D1 level, but maybe they can, as you know, with NIL and transfer portal, how it's changed the game. But
it has.
I think it could really be an opportunity for some players to come there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned NIL and with Division II athletics and stuff like that. I'm a Division II person as well, being and worked for the Gulf South Conference. When you start looking at that, there's only 4 GSC schools still playing football now. To get it was, if you look back in the 2000s to 2006, 2007, before North Alabama went Division I, all those things. The GSC was viewed as the SEC of Division II football.
Yeah.
So getting a name like that.
It'll be good for the conference.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's really good for the conference. Yeah. Back to you as we finish up.
Okay.
A lot of memories happen on Old Canton Road.
Mm-hmm.
And as you look back at your class of 86, and you're like, wow, this is one of those monumental moments. What's one thing you're looking forward to tonight?
Not just classmates from my graduating year, but there'll be classmates there from the year before, year behind, so my high school years. The fact that they would be willing to come and share this with me is very humbling, and so it's exciting because, I don't live in Madison. I have not lived in Madison since I came back, I think, between my freshman and sophomore year, but I have not lived in Madison since. So the reunion that's going to happen with not just even teammates, but their parents too.
Yeah.
A lot of parents that have told me that they're going to come too, and just it's going to flash back a lot of memories. And I think just being on campus has done that, but it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
So, but seeing familiar faces and being able to be celebrated in such a way that, I mean, it's humbling. I just will say that. But I'm excited about seeing everybody and all the honoraries.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
Well, you're a
that's
legend
exciting
here.
too. Well,
When you start thinking about the people, and I'm serious, when you start thinking about the men and the women who have been inducted in this Hall of Fame, I mean, you're cementing yourself in the Patriot legacy. And I think that's one of those things that people, you really don't think about, but then when you're in it and you see, wow, I made an impact.
yeah.
You know, and that's really what you want to do in your high school career. You want to, did I leave a lasting legacy? Did I make an impact? And then for you, the thing that you're looking forward to tonight is seeing the people come back.
Yeah.
And knowing that, hey, I did make an impact. Knowing I wasn't looking forward to, like, I'm not trying to be a Hall of Famer. That wasn't my goal. But you've made an impact. And then Coach Sweet's made an impact on you now you're working
Yeah.
with youth now too.
Yeah.
So anything else before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity and for the honor. I mean, it is very humbling, and it is something I never expected. But I will carry it with pride, and I hope I will represent well. And I'm so honored to be, the people that came before me are people that I just idolized. So to be part of that is just something that I will be forever grateful for the opportunity. So thanks.
24 is a legacy here.
Yeah.
24.
There you go.
is
I love it.
legacy here. I really have enjoyed our conversation, and
Yeah.
thank you for joining us before we have the induction tonight, taking time out of your day to spend about 30 to 45 minutes with me, just reflecting back a little bit of what Madison Ridgeland Academy meant to you as an athlete and a student here. So thank you for
Thank you
taking
for
time.
having me.
Yep. And that was Melissa Jones Haab joining us today in the OCR Lounge. Very thankful for her conversation. A lot of key takeaways here, not just with basketball and sports, but it's how to be a great teammate. How sports leave kind of an identity on you, on how you translate in life. Like she said earlier, if you're going to put in the hard work, why not go be good and go be successful? That's translating to her being the VP of Student Affairs at West Alabama. When you start looking at her love for basketball and how at 5'2", was a fierce competitor that was feared by a lot. To go on and walk on at Mississippi State and made the team, and what that could have looked like if she had a different coach in her life. And that's a challenge to other coaches that are watching and listening to this, that the mind games aren't. Just get to the heart of the athlete and pour your heart and soul into them so they'll perform the best for you and your program. The walks with her sisters to school. I can't imagine those conversations, but we left those conversations stay on that road of St. Augustine to Old Canton as they came to school. We didn't dive into too many of those conversations because those are special moments shared with sisters, and just a lot of that and more packed into this episode. And thank you for continuing to listen to the OCR Lounge. With Melissa being an inductee tonight, it's just a great reflection on the legacy that she has left here at MRA, being an inductee into the 225 Athletic Hall of Fame. So thank you to Melissa for joining us, and thank you to Brown Bottling for being a title sponsor of this podcast.
That's the sound of a Mountain Dew. And that's you enjoying its refreshing citrus kick. That's a cool breeze suddenly whistling through your hair.
Whoa!
That's you realizing you're now on a mountain.
This is epic!
That's you stating the obvious. That's you stepping up to the plate. That's you winning your kickball game.
Yes! Let's go!
That's you taking another sip of your Do the Dew.